Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. This is the Benji and Nick Show, the reality-based game. And this time, I've cracked it, Nicholas. I really have. And we're going to play. In fact, we've already started. Had to get that in there.
Yeah. What Benji is doing, and that was Benji, and I'm Nick, by the way. He is previewing what we're going to be discussing later, which is a series called The One Game. When was it broadcast?
I believe it's 1988. Let me just have a quick peek at you. The One Game.
A terrifying year for me, because it's when I started working at Visual Imagination, which was a small publishing company that did Starburst and then later TV Zone. And that was the beginning of one of the most appalling times of my life.
Oh dear.
This qualifies as Nick Briggs' sad story this week.
Roll the violin.
I shall go no further. I also learnt an awful lot, so it was not an entirely wasted experience. A lot of the things were negative lessons, but they were
well, it's all about life experience, isn't it? That's the main thing.
Yeah.
You know,
mainly to do with how nuts people can be. This here podcast, we discuss cult TV and have a chat, and we also read out your emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. We have an ongoing little treat for you where if you go to the Jerry Anderson store, which is shop.jerryanderson.co.uk.
It is indeed shop.jerryanderson.co.uk.
If you buy something there and enter the code destroy, all one word, capital letters, you get free shipping on your order.
You can't say fairer than that.
Thing. Yeah.
You know, and there's plenty of goodies on there.
Yeah. We also have a competition running with the Unmutual, which is the website devoted to The Prisoner TV series and Patrick McGoohan. The prize is the Essential Prisoner Guide, a colour guidebook to the series, and also the Essential Interviews, Volume 1. It's got Patrick McGoohan interview, the last prisoner interview, recorded in 1990 and released in 2018 following restoration by Mark Ayres, audio genius. And the question is more of a task. It's a link between the programme we chatted about last week, The Nightmare Man, and the Big Finish adaptations of The Prisoner. You have to come up with a link to that. There is a very obvious one, and everyone who's entered so far is getting it, but the winner will be randomly selected. So please, you've got until next Friday, I believe, to send in your competition entries to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com.
It's very exciting indeed. It's always nice to see people entering and getting involved with the various competitions and stuff like that. And you've only got to look at the prizes. If you go to the Unmutual, I've certainly seen it on Twitter, I believe, you can see pictures of what you could win, and it's very funky, very fun.
Now, for no good reason, we often, but not always, but often phone Jamie Anderson during our podcast. He is the son of Jerry Anderson, the creator of Thunderbirds and all that, and I do a lot of work with him with Big Finish, and we've become great chums. And of course, you know, we offer you that little offer on his website. I don't know whether we're going to get him. Interestingly, there's a text from you here, Benji, that says, "Just making a cuppa and we'll be with you."
That's me. That sounds like me having that. I'm always making tea. I should really start counting how many cups of tea I drink every day, because I drink an appalling amount of tea. Is it appalling? Well, it's appalling if you're against tea drinking, I suppose. My tea is not appalling. I make good cups of tea. Although I think I've... Oh, it's ringing.
No, what's that?
I was going to say
that's from Ken Bentley, a Big Finish director, talking about when I'm meeting up with him. I've arranged all this to make it sound like I've got friends and a social life.
And here's one here from Nigel. Just give me... Where's my 50 quid? No, nothing there, nothing.
Well, we're itching to talk about The One Game, but let's see what Jamie, if we can get... Oh, there, no. I'm trying to work out which end the sound comes out of.
I've been trying to work that out all my life.
We work in sound all the time. Can't work out which end the sound...
Ooh.
I think. Oh, it's connecting.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Just all Jamie can see is a huge microphone.
Is that what you're calling it? Very good.
Hey.
It's all become a bit vaguely suggestive.
Well, I thought you were going to say a huge beard.
My beard is getting bigger and bigger, actually.
It is.
So,
Impressive.
Jamie, welcome to the Benji and Nick show.
Thanks very much. Nick, why haven't you been calling? I mean, I've been, I've sent texts, I've sent emails, I've heard nothing back. I thought the Benji and Nick show had been avoiding me.
Well, last week we spoke to Rick Davey of the Unmutual. He offered us a competition prize, so...
Oh, I see. Fair enough.
He's my new best friend.
You're so fickle.
What's new in your world?
Well, I'm currently taking a lunch break.
Oh, yes.
And I'm eating some chicken and mushroom soup.
Right.
Ooh, lovely.
And I'm actually watching Dragonfire on Twitch.
Oh, Doctor Who, the Sylvester McCoy adventure, which introduces Ace.
Very good story,
Exactly.
that one.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. Even though I've seen it, so many times before, the dangle cliffhanger still irritates me quite a lot.
The melting faces are good, though.
The melodies are very good, Benji. You're quite right. And what are you doing? Why aren't you doing a podcast? Why are you calling me?
We are doing a podcast, but it's a traditional part of our podcast now that that we bother you for no apparent reason.
Okay, well I'm very pleased to see your beard and microphone.
I know, I have to hold the phone quite close so we get this. It's really weird. We're going to be discussing a drama called The One Game. Have you ever heard of it?
I've only heard of it because I looked it up on Wikipedia.
Oh, well, I mentioned it to you earlier, didn't I?
Yeah, because I asked you what you were doing. And no, I've never heard of it. And reading the Wikipedia article didn't exactly make me want to watch it either. How have you found it?
Well, I watched it over lunch. I had salad.
Very good.
My wife's putting me on a low cholesterol diet.
Oh, dear.
Oh. Well, good luck with that.
Well, especially since we're watching Mortimer and Whitehouse, or Whitehouse and Mortimer go fishing, two comedy stars, and they both had terrible heart problems. And of course, I've got a pacemaker and I've got high cholesterol, so But I will, however, be having hake and chips tonight down at the beach.
Lovely.
Oh, I love fish and chips on the beach. I'm so jealous.
Hake in particular. I like hake.
Yeah. Do you know what? Dad was quite a big fan of hake.
Was he?
Yeah, hake was in pole position, followed by haddock, but he didn't care for cod.
Well, I don't mind it, but it's very worrying, the similarities you keep drawing between me and your father. I mean, I don't know whether it's flattering, because when I said I was buying Gant shirts, you said, oh, yeah, my dad got obsessed with those. So I thought, what's the matter with me? I'm just modelling myself on Jerry Anderson.
Well, there are worse people to model yourself on, I suppose.
That's hopefully true.
Well, I mean, I'm really sorry I'm not doing anything more important where you can frustrate me, but actually you've called me a really good time.
Well, there's got to be a first for everything.
Yeah. If you could do this in future, that would be great.
Brilliant. And thanks for plugging us on your podcast. Tell us about your podcast.
Oh, really? Do you want to hear about that? It's the Jerry Anderson podcast, and we interview people and
including
chat about
me.
news. And I've interviewed you, and you'll be on in a few weeks' time. But Gary Newman and David Graham are coming up in the next couple of weeks, so they're quite different.
David Graham!
David Graham.
Yes,
David Graham!
What was it? Gary Newman. Our friends Electric. I can't do Gary very well. I used to.
Benji's just been doing a very
It's
good
cold
rendition of Our Friends
outside.
Electric.
Oh,
I hate to ask.
And I hate to
Our
ask.
friends are electric.
Gary Newman was lovely, so...
Yeah.
I wish we had Gary Newman.
Benji, I was devastated because I said to Jamie, tell him that the voice of the Daleks thinks he's really great.
Did he do it?
No, he doesn't like Doctor Who.
Oh. Well, that's annoying, isn't
Not
it?
so bad for you when he said that. I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah, well, no, these disappointments have to come. Like Chris Chibnall saying, what was a dog barking? Chris Chibnall saying there are no Daleks in the next series, of which, of course, I knew because I hadn't been given a job, but, I had to keep quiet about it. I could neither confirm nor deny, Okay, well, I'll leave you to deal with your dogs. You're looking very troubled.
Well, I'm just trying to see what they're barking at. Oh, there's a lovely old man walking up on the footpath outside my office, and the dogs are just barking at him.
Is it David Graham?
No.
You must get away!
This is a slow-moving old man, and David Graham, despite being 93, it still moves like a man of 35.
Greased lightning, yeah. He's remarkably chipper and fit, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and he gives health and fitness advice in his podcast interview.
Well, that's what you want, isn't it?
You must all do exercise!
He says
Star
that,
jumps.
No smoking, only eat fish. Don't overindulge. There you go.
Yeah. Well, what kind of
Tips
life
from
would that
master.
be? Well, I'm having fish today in batter.
Battered.
Yeah, sounds great if you're your low cholesterol diet. Good luck with that.
A special low cholesterol batter.
And chips.
And peas.
Lovely.
I might have a Hive beer with it, if that means anything to anyone. Anyway. Well, thank you. We must get on with emails and stuff. But
Yeah, do the proper podcast bit, not talking to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to eat my soup and watch Dragonfire.
Do it.
Marvellous.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, old chap.
Have a good podcast.
Thank you. Bye.
Tally ho, bye bye.
There we are.
Lovely man, lovely man.
Right, shall I press record?
Hey. Wah, wah.
Right, so I better look at the emails.
I think it's time, yeah. Check out the emails, see what we think.
Benji and Nick show. Well, of course, Cole Grayus has sent us a fantastic bit of artwork. Inside this week, your emails. Star Trek called it Nick's AirPod dilemma.
Yeah,
What was my AirPod dilemma just now?
You said my ears begin to be changing shape. They just fall on. It fell on the floor, didn't it? Terrible.
It's done it twice today.
You playing it, man. Pull yourself together. Crikey.
I find it annoying because when I first showed them to people, everyone said, including Sylvester McCoy, just to name drop someone, he said, I'd be worried about those falling out. I was like, no, they don't fall out at all. And now today, as if to prove Sylvester McCoy right, but twice.
He's just laughing. He's outside the shed, just having a right old giggle.
So Cole also predicts Cat Weasel being in this podcast.
Mayhap.
And it said, Benji, rough, ready and live.
Always. That's me. Oh, no, there was a Cat Weasel thing I was saying the other day. What was it? The eye of time, brother. The eye of time. And every time Carrot was there going, but how are we going to do that? Brother, the eye of time. Love him.
Well, luckily he hasn't put Nick's sad story in, which has stopped me talking about visual imagination. Benji and Nick chat about the one game.
The one game.
But these are fantastic fake magazine covers that he does for us. He
They're
also
so
says in
good.
his email, Dear Mr. Nick and Benji, enjoyed last week's podcast. I tried to watch The Nightmare Man, but didn't get through the first episode. Same with The One Game. Stephen Delaney's character is so unlikably arrogant. I found that I was rooting for Magnus, even though he says very little. So I wandered off to a car boot sale.
I can talk about that in a bit. Don't worry.
We can sort that out. Oh, by the way, I just got a text from Jamie saying, it says, to counter your low cholesterol diet, I've just put a glug of double cream in my soup to rebalance the universe.
Style.
Whilst wandering aimlessly around said car boot sale, I came across this, which is the magazine cover he sent us. Issue 21 of the Benji and Nick Show magazine. A bit tattered, a bit frayed. The pages are loose, but still a great find. Regards, Cullen Lucian Leaford Smythe, Esquire.
Ooh,
P.S.
like
I
that.
tried to have a look at Mr. Benji's Facebook page because he said that he put up a Benji and Nick Show magazine cover, but could not see it. Ooh. PPS, did Mr. Benji do the theme tune to Jamie Anderson's podcast? It's very catchy, reminds me of the Power themes of 90 album. Is there a longer version?
There is a longer version. Yeah, Jamie asked me to do that, which I definitely, of course, I obliged. And we sort of had the idea of doing those sort of Power Themes 90 sort of thing with them. It's really hard because the original idea was to get lots of different Anderson theme tunes and kind of do a big mashup. But the problem with that is that they're all at different tempos, and a lot of the old theme tunes are recorded way back when, so they're not sort of perfectly in time, which is why I actually spent a lot of the time riffing on the Terrorhawks theme, because that uses modern drum machines and stuff like that. So it's got a bit more of a. Then what I did to get some of the bits and bobs, I actually got out my DJ decks and used it to kind of speed it up on the fly to get the ed at the right tempo, and then kind of did things, mixed it in and out. And so it's a lot of bits and bobs in there. But there is I did do a longer version of it, which Jamie has. I don't know if he puts it at the end. I can't remember.
Maybe he plays it underneath.
Maybe he does. Yeah, but there is a longer one, but we had to cut it down because, as with themed songs, you don't want them to go on too long, especially in audio. No. Then it just becomes a radio show, really. But I'm glad you found it catchy. It's good fun. As for my Facebook, that's just closed off to the world. I just have a few people on there, really. Just my little private little garden net one.
Am I a Facebook friend of yours?
You are, you are, I believe. Oh. I believe you are.
It's just I don't bother looking.
Yes, he doesn't.
I better go around and do some weeding.
No, I just keep it relatively sort of. To be fair, I rarely use it. Really, I only use it to chat to people. Twitter's where I kind of put all my stuff. Really, it's my gateway to the world.
I mostly use my official Facebook page. Actually, I rarely use my personal one. So
not
folks,
important enough for an official one. I daren't launch one. I'd only have about 5 people on it, and they'd probably be my mum, my dad, my sister, and the bloke.
I think I had 5 people on it when I first launched. But what you got to do is I offered loads of prizes and things, and then suddenly got it up to about 5,000 people. I'll offer looking anymore.
I'll say, if you don't, I'll just blackmail everybody. That's how I'll do it. If you don't like it, I will put a beehive in your house.
Going back to your what's that? That's not a bee.
That's not one bee. It's a hive. One bee is like, whereas a hive is like that.
That
sounds like an old drunk.
I'm going back to your comments about old theme tunes. What you're saying is those old theme tunes played by real orchestras, they just had a conductor's baton to keep them in time, and you're saying that that's not perfect.
Well, it's very difficult because as well as lots of different factors. I mean, they all work to a time signature. But what you find is, because it's real instruments, you've got a whole room full of 30 people, and also when you do orchestral things, they're rarely right down to the notes in terms of timing, because it's more living and breathing to it. And also, as well as that, these things are recorded.
That's more what my music's like.
All out of time. Living. No, it's important if you do orchestral stuff. But also, these things, they get recorded on tape from years ago, and so you often find that, especially back in the days where these things are broadcast and stuff like that, tapes times can be sometimes out or stretched, or there's so many different factors in there. But I thought it was easier to kind of put in lots of little quotes and bits and bobs rather than struggle, because
that was good.
Because I didn't want to, especially with some of their awesome, because the Anderson themes, for me, I always think all those Barry Gray themes are like some of the most important and iconic theme tunes sort of in television, and so you want to make sure you do them justice rather than have them out of time because I can't speed them up perfectly or put them in or something. So it's important. I just thought it's better to less is more. Yeah. I was just it was just reminded me, we're talking about the timing thing, because I happened to be in a rather lovely park I'd never been to before last weekend,
and there was a brass band setting up. I thought, I say. So I've forced Steph and Ben to wait there for far longer than they wanted to watch this brass band. And they were very old people. And the first number they did was a jolly number. I can't remember what it was, but it was very up tempo. And the lady with her baton started, and it was fantastic to hear. Fantastic. But then they did something a bit more ambitious for their second number. And we had to leave. I mean, we had to leave the park. It was a car crash. It was like,
oh no!
It was just, it was like someone had suddenly sort of given them all a shot of whiskey, and they were all slightly drunk. It was absolutely, and yeah, know your limits. By the way, Cole adds PPPS, just to clarify, the Benji Rough and Ready and Live is a direct quote from last week's podcast and not me being weird.
I think it's very apt. I think rough, ready, and
we
live.
Must have said that. I love the detail on this. It says the weekly magazine, issue 21, every Sunday, 13p.
They're so good though. They look so authentic as well. That's the other thing.
We put them on the nicholasbriggs.com website as well.
Certainly, but thanks for doing them, because it's great to see. It's so fun.
Really great.
So fun. Talented man, a talented chap.
Definitely. What else have we got here? We've got Alan Johnston, who gives the answer to the competition, but I won't give that away. Fingers crossed, he says. I've only recently discovered your podcast, and I must say I'm very impressed by the selection of topics you've discussed. I'm sure I could construct a list as long as my arm of suggestions for future shows, but will restrict myself to only 3. Supernatural thriller The Omega Factor, which of course we do. Big Finish. The ITC classic Department S. Oh yeah. And last but by no means least, Adam Adamant, the Edwardian gent propelled into the swinging 60s, who slaughters ne'er-do-wells with a gleeful glint in his eye and scant recourse to the British legal system. What a brilliant summation of that series. As for this week's show, I really enjoyed the one game, but I felt it worked best at the beginning, while the mysterious nature of the game was being established, which then built up the paranoia nicely. By the end, however, it had lost a fair bit of steam, and the conclusion came across as muddled. Well, we don't know that yet. The tragedy of the drown... Oh, he's giving too much away. No, I can't say that either.
Don't read it, Nick.
It's too many spoilers. I look forward to hearing your insights. Well, you will hear them, yes. Okay, I'm putting that in the red folder, so I'm not tempted to read it out again. What's this? Laura Vilensky from Ohio, USA. Imagine my surprise to hear Benji and the Nixter, this is Holy STNG Batman, ! Is the subject line, to go on a Star Trek diatribe on the Benji and Nick show. Colour me surprised. I immediately thought of my other most favourite podcast in the world, link below, Star Trek The Next Generation. It's 2 friends going through all the Next Generation episodes. They're up to season 3, where one of them, Matt Meara, has seen all the episodes previously, while the other one, Andy Secunda, is watching them for the first time. It's fabulous and funny, and 2 guys just having fun, and lots of Star Trek sound effects. Theories galore. They're writers in LA and have quite the camaraderie, and they rate the episodes. I just love it. I did watch Star Trek The Next Generation in the 80s when they first came out, but skipped a few years, so it'll be great to hear how it goes in the middle. I hope you check it out. I think you'd enjoy the insanity and fun. Love what you guys do to introduce us ignorant sci-fi fans to the British shows you know and love. There we are. Check out episode 6. I'm going to send this email to you, Benji, so that you can get the link.
Excellent. Okie doke. I'll tell you one thing, actually. Talking of Star Trek The Next Generation, I've just spoken to Nick about this. I might have mentioned it before. But I've been doing a thing called Star Trek The Next Generation in 40 hours, which is where somebody has gone through and they've worked out, they've taken episodes which have significant impact upon the ongoing plot of the Star Trek Next Generation, but it's kind of weeds out a lot of the sillier, more pointless episodes, because my problem with The Next Generation is that it's awesome, but I think it can be silly at times, and like irritatingly so.
Sorry, this is silly.
So no, not today. This is silly. But I do like The Next Generation, and I mean that Borg cliffhanger. Like, I was like seeing it for the first time very recently as well. I was just like, oh my god! I was like, this
is an amazing cliffhanger, isn't it? Yeah.
Probably the best from what I've seen. Is that two-parter is like the best two-parter out in The Next Generation that I've seen so far. My
favourite thing about that cliffhanger is they resolved it a year later. And all the cast's haircuts had changed slightly. But they tried to match them, but you could see all sorts of different things. The cast, between two shots, the cast looked quite different.
I love stuff like that. It is funny, isn't it? It is very funny. Oh, they're on Captain's Holiday. God, what an episode!
Joe Kramer, a composer for Big Finish. Also a Hollywood composer, came over and I took him out for dinner, and he reminded me of an episode called The Inner Light. Do you know that one?
Light. I can't remember. Let me see what it's about.
It's where, well, I'll tell you, it's where Picard is sort of kidnapped by a probe and kind of has an entire lifetime in the space of about 2 seconds of being unconscious.
What a great idea.
And what was really annoying about Joe pointing this episode out to me, I realised that I had just inadvertently and unconsciously slightly ripped it off in a script I was writing. Just as an aside thing, it was not an important part of the plot, but I'd done something very... And I thought, there's nothing new under the sun, is there?
But, isn't that... there's ideas are out there, and sometimes somebody can just go in there and think them for themselves. It doesn't mean you're copying something, does it? It just means you suddenly think, oh, that's very similar to this. That's very similar to that. I haven't seen this one, actually. It's towards the end of Series 3, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good. And did I mention before that I'd watched Yesterday's Enterprise recently? Absolutely. It's my favourite, really.
That's one of the absolute top ones, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Beautifully done.
Some great stuff out there in Star Trek.
Talking of Star Trek, I've got something up my sleeve for later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but strangely enough, that's our 3 emails. Don't forget, email us at podcast@nicholasbriggs.com.
Get involved, we do like them.
Everyone who emailed in for the last couple of weeks has been getting a free audiobook, but that offer is ending today, Sunday, the 22nd. No, sorry, yeah, the 22nd of July. So if you email today, you'll get the free audiobook of Skane.
Do it.
Next time round, well, I'll think of something else to hand out as an encouragement. Anyway, also, those of you who've heard it, do let us know what you think of it, your thoughts on Skane. Yeah, email us. podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. Start us off on The One Game.
The One Game. The One Game was a program. It was released in 1988 for Central Independent Television, ITV, and it basically follows the life of Nicholas. Sorry, I just keep thinking of the episode recaps in there. Nicholas Thorne is a businessman who's achieved success by marketing games. He finds himself drawn into a reality game by his former business partner, Magnus, whom Nick had forced out of their games company after initial success. Called The One Game, this sees Nick take on a series of challenges which force him to explore his past, whilst both his professional and personal life come under threat. It's about a reality game. It's about a game in which anybody around you could be playing it. It could be your closest friends, it could be passers-by on the streets, it could be your family. Everybody's playing, and you really don't know who's on your side and who isn't. Fascinating concept, and I fell in love with this series. It's a 4-parter. I fell in love with it when I first watched it because it's so sort of slightly strange. It's a bit of an oddity. I quite like it. So, Nick, you watched episode 1 today, where it sort of all sets the scene. One of the things I was saying to you earlier about it channels a lot of Arthurian sort of myths and lore in there. And and this is interesting because this goes back to the email about how the character of Nicholas is thoroughly unpleasant. And it's basically, that's the idea. It's all about, it can be looked at in two ways. So the first way it can be looked at is that imagine that Magnus is Merlin and Nicholas is Arthur. And imagine what would happen if Merlin, who's helped King Arthur get to the throne, if Arthur suddenly turns around and banishes and says, "I'll see you later, I don't need you anymore, Merlin." And so it's about what would happen, if you've got somebody who thinks they've achieved everything they need to now, and or the way it can also be turned around is that Magnus is King Arthur, and he is betrayed by Nicholas, who is Lancelot, who famously betray King Arthur. So there's some interesting little things in there.
Is that your reading of it, or is that their sort of declared aim?
It's a reading of it. It's undoubtedly it is about. The whole thing is about King Arthur all the way through from...
Well, you mentioned that to me before I watched it. I said, don't spoil it for me, because I wouldn't have got that apart from all the sort of sub-Clanad sort of music going throughout it, and that all the design of the graphics. But there doesn't... In the first episode, there's nothing to suggest it except this very odd, I would say, out-of-place music. That was my... I have two main problems with this production, although I've been sucked in and I definitely want to watch the rest of it. The one problem is that I find the music is just like completely disassociated with the drama. As you pointed out, it was done on a Fairlight.
I love it. I agree with you, but I do love the music. It's very...
I think the music is interesting of its time, that kind of synthesizer, but it doesn't seem to relate to the drama at all. There's one bit where he pushes someone out of a warehouse and then kicks them in the water, and the music's going la da 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 da, and it's just like I don't know whether they're being ironic or just they had a track and they didn't know what to do with it, and so they just...
It's a strange one. I mean, I think with the music, my interpretation of it is that you're mixing the old and the new. So the theme music is very, whereas the music is very modern, and I think that's kind of to reflect like the fact that it's all about a games company rather than the traditional thing. But there are a few Arthurian things throughout. You've got the Lady of the Lake, where you see the sword in the lake. He sees the woman offering the sword. I
saw that, which seems to be upsetting him. He's sort of leant on the car in a kind of, I can't
wistful,
believe I'm in this.
Strange sort of way. There's a few other things as well. A lot of characters. I mean, one of the characters' name is Faye. Faye was one of the main characters in Arthurian myth. But as you go throughout, you'll see little nods. But it's kind of one of those things. I can't really spoil it for you, but like I think it's episode 2. There's guys. In fact, no, it's in this episode. You see guys on motorbikes with almost lances. Like lances, and there are just lots of things. There's loads. It's very weird, and I don't think it's meant to be kind of. It's all about the fantasy thing of they make fantasy games about Arthur and his kingdom, and there's lots of little nods to it, but it's not meant to be in your face Arthurian stuff. What shall I start on first? I tell you, one thing about the plot that annoyed me, that what they do, the artifice of it, they're playing fast and loose with the audience a bit, because at the end of the episode, there are explanations that are flashbacks to a previous scene, but bits of the previous scene that they hadn't previously shown you. I thought that was odd, yeah.
And I find that fundamentally dishonest. I think that if you're going to flash back to something, or you have to reveal why we didn't see it before, but the reason we didn't see it before is that just the author didn't want us to know that before. So it's
because
he went to see these students and they asked him all sorts of interesting questions and he gave interesting answers, and they all become relevant later, which would be good. But instead, they don't show that earlier; they only show those later on. And I thought that was a little bit clumsy. That kind of writing annoys me. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this star who plays Nicholas, who I know as either, I can't remember how to pronounce his name. It's either it's spelled Stephen Dillane. It's either Stephen Delaney or Stephen Delane, and who has had a massively successful career since then. He's done so many fantastic things. He is a superb actor. I have no real connection with him myself, except that an actress I know very, very well, who's same age as me, and I've worked with many, many times, did have carnal knowledge of him. back in the day when they were at drama school, I believe. But that's funny when that sort of thing happens. I remember sitting down to interview an actress about her knowledge of Doctor Who. I said, "Oh, have you got any connection with Doctor Who?" And then she named one of the doctors who she'd slept with. I said, "Yeah, that's not going in the interview." And she went, "Oh, okay." She absolutely, what I mean? She seemed sort of slightly confused by that. Anyway, I move on. Now, the thing about him is, there are two things I want to say. One, he is credited in this as Stephen Dillon.
Yeah.
So he's changed his name since this. Also, there's an actress in this called, who I know as Pippa Haywood, but she is credited as Philippa Haywood, and she is now known as Pippa Haywood. She was in Charlotte Pollard series 2.
How strange.
The Prime Minister, yeah. Before we had another female Prime Minister, so we were sort of slightly predicting there. So yeah, 2 actors in it who changed their name. The other thing I want to say about Stephen Dillon is that, I don't know the full story, but it's something that Cole Gray's touched upon. You've only got to look at his current headshot. I think it's true to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that Mr. Stephen here has never ever played a character you'd like. And you see his face. He's got a look on his face like, "Yeah, I just did something in your coffee." You know what I mean? He's got one up on you all the time. Yeah, all right. Yeah, get lost.
You're not wrong, actually.
He doesn't. I mean, he's a brilliant actor, but his. I've never seen him play anyone who you love, because you can't love him because he's got a sinister edge to him.
He's got that sinister edge, and also I think he's got that sort of cocky element to him, and which very much. In fact, he played in 2004. He played Merlin in King Arthur.
Well, now, I've never seen that.
I've not seen it. I'm looking on his IMDb. I can't imagine Merlin to be nasty. But then who knows?
Yeah, but he would have made him nasty.
Very true. Very true.
I mean, I keep thinking of him in The Parole Officer. Did you see him in that Steve Coogan movie? And he is absolutely horrifically
Come on,
ghastly at that.
Simon. I'm not going to quote it because I know what I know what I would be quoting.
Yes.
In that one. Yeah, he's brilliant at that one. What was it? Crime doesn't pay. And he laughs for like 5 minutes. I love The Parole Officer. It's one of my favourite films.
Me too.
Talking to
a lot of people didn't like that. So.
Talking to Tom Saunders about it last night, actually, because I mentioned about he said something about it might have been the One Game or something, and he said, yeah, I loved him in The Parole Officer, and we were like, oh my god. Yeah,
but he's not. If we're meant to like him and sympathise with him in the One Game, we're not. You don't like him. He's an arse, as we would say in the UK. He's a total arse.
That's the whole point, really. The way I interpret it is that he is an arse, and he is, like all the way through. All he does is market games. He doesn't even like the games. Whereas Magnus, who is essentially the villain in this, he's the guy. He loved it. He loved the games and that, and he was kind of stabbed in the back, and so and he went mad subsequently. So the whole actual premise of this,
beautifully played by Patrick Malahide,
so
who's
good in
always perfect. Who can play lovely characters, although he's very good at the sinister ones as well.
Oh, definitely. But the whole of this is all about how. It's about Nicholas. He's making Nicholas teaching him a lesson in the only way that he can, by stripping him of his wealth and his achievements, and punishing him emotionally as well. As it goes along, it's the conclusion at the end is interesting. It's sort of. I know it does lose steam.
Well, I'm glad the conclusion is at the end and not halfway through.
Well, quite. Quite. But
quite.
But it's. I think it's a lovely little oddity of a series.
But is it not a problem that there's no one likable in it?
It becomes likable.
So
you go on a journey.
Okay.
You go on a journey.
Right.
Like if you imagine, you're stuck with Nicholas, the character, Nicholas Thorne, and you kind of. he's set challenges and to explore his
grows,
past.
does
He grows, yeah, and he has to confront things in both his professional and his personal life.
I would say about Stephen Delane's performance, he clearly isn't accidentally playing him as an arse. I mean, he's doing all this sort of chewing and eye rolling and kind of yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm a millionaire. Yeah,
is it
it's
making
also
me
not
some
clear
money?
how this business about how they lose £2.1 million. It's They don't. There was no internet in those days, was there? So
there must have been something. There must have been some
kind
like
of rudimentary
something because have you ever seen the Wall Street films?
No,
they're great films. But in Wall Street, they've got those funky computers like that with weird connections. So there must have been something. I like the portable computer in this.
Oh yeah,
so that was quite fun.
Do describe it.
Oh, it's great. You got your computer tower, which then has a weird little plastic stand in which you lay it on its side, and then the keyboard and the mouse pop out of one bit of it, and then you open a thing and there's a screen there, and it's like the most crazy primitive form of like a laptop
as well, isn't it?
And it comes with a massive strappy bag, like a huge.
Do you think it's real?
That's what I was trying to work out. I don't think it's real, but I don't know.
Convincing.
I mean, maybe Google will help us out here. Portable computer tower 80s with built-in screen.
He also uses a car phone, doesn't he, connected to his car with a bit of cord. Yeah.
No, it's real. It is real. It's a real thing. It's
it must be
an IBM portable PC. Good Lord, that's amazing.
And all those green pixelated graphics.
I believe it is,
text.
although for whatever reason, it was released in date announced 1984, date cancelled 86. But
cancel it. We're cancelling it. I mean, he cancels it. He chucks it in a canal.
It's rubbish.
It's tied to a dead bloke's belt.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit silly. I thought, come on, mate. I thought you just, they're going to find him.
Well, he's using it as a weight to hold the body down, but the funny thing is the body goes first, and then this thing takes ages to sink.
Oh, I thought that, and then they cut away and cut back, and he's gone. I thought, yep,
yeah,
you've had to deal with that one way or the other. All
accompanied by very jolly synthesizer music.
But the synth music, although jolly, it was composed on. Because I had to work. I spent ages trying to work out what it was, and because the only thing in my mind, the only thing that I've recognised was the harp sound, and so I thought I'm sure that's from the Fairlight, which is a huge old synthesizer, and I thought, now where have I heard that harp sound before? I've heard it on the soundtrack of To Live and Die in L.A. By Wang Chung. An 80s
Wang
band.
Chung. What was their hit?
Dance Hall Days. Dance Hall Days.
Yeah.
So I looked up their gear list, found that they used the Fairlight, and then worked out this must be the Fairlight because it's the same sound. Right. Very over the top answer really to that. But yeah, so I think I like it. I think it's very of its time. It is inappropriate, but then I think a lot of things in the 80s and the 90s, it kind of was all about all the gear but no idea. You've got all these new synthesizers and sounds, and really you've got it because you want to look the business by being a composer and being like if you're sitting at home,
the Fairlight was on Tomorrow's World. They did a thing about how it can copy any sound, and you could just sort of make a fart noise into it and then play a tune.
Oh, it's an incredible bit of kit. I mean, if
there'd been some of that in here, I would have enjoyed it.
If you're sitting at home and you want to get a look at it, so type in Fairlight CMI, and you will see what the Fairlight looks like. And it's got this crazy screen and a keyboard.
With a pen as well, isn't it?
With a pen. And it's interesting enough, you can see how much the Fairlight costs. So the Fairlight here, in its most primitive form, was 18,000, and it could... If you really wanted to go for it, could go up to £60,000 in the 80s. This was released in 1979. The Fairlight. You can imagine what a ridiculously mental amount of money there.
God.
But yeah, it's cute. But I suppose if you owned one though, it'd be like, I own a Fairlight. I'm a professional. You know, but arguably,
all the gear, no idea. I love that phrase you use.
Oh, I love, it's such a good little phrase. I love using that. But interestingly enough, though, it's the music's done by Nigel Hess, who is a pretty damn good television composer.
What else has he done?
He did Dangerfield, Wycliffe, Hetty Wainthorpe Investigates. Love that series. I don't know why, I just do.
No, I don't know why either.
It's really good. The theme tune's really good. He uses a lovely sort of Yorkshire-style horn in that one. He does a lot of stuff. He was that in-house composer for the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Really?
Yeah, but he's very good. But yeah, I think
I don't rate him. I'm sure he's brilliant. Based on this, I find it's the music. The character of Nicholas being such a pillock and the music are really not helping me in this. But anyway, I'm going to persist.
Put it out your mind and just imagine that Patrick Malahide is playing the master, and your life is brilliant because he just is the master. I was like, wow, it's like we just got the 90s master here, haven't we? Really?
Yeah. So we're giving this a fairly considered,
I'll give it
tempered recommendation.
I'll give it a high For me personally, I'd highly rate it because I just think it's really fun. It ticks the boxes for me, but I'm aware that I think it ticks some personal boxes for things that I like that perhaps other people wouldn't like, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like the Arthurian stuff, the Fairlight music, the game setting and fantasy stuff.
It's worth saying that it looks pretty good. I mean, they shot it on film, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it's a very slick production. I mean, I think there's some odd sort of directing in it, like when he sees the skinheads. We don't sufficiently see that the skinheads are a threat before he runs away. He just sees them and runs for his life. I mean, there were skinheads all over the place in 1988, and if you ran away every time you saw some, you'd turn into a gibbering wreck. You know what I mean? I think they needed to threaten him more before he ran away.
I suppose he was in an empty shopping centre with them playing music.
I suppose I would have lost my life because I would have just walked past them. I would have tried to walk past them.
I wouldn't have run away, I have to admit. I probably would have got out of there.
The grammar of the way it's shot, they should have done something threatening before. As it is, they just draw breath and play some music, and he goes, "Christ, I'm getting out of here." And I think any minute now they're just going to walk past him, and he'll discover he was frightened about nothing. But of course, as it turns out, he was right to be frightened of the minority social underclass.
Could I actually raise one more point, because I think you'll agree with this? Apart from the main cast, which is great, some of the supporting roles are shocking acting in there.
Oh, with the computer expert.
The computer expert, my God, I thought, Christ, who's this? Oliver Twist. There you go.
Yeah, well, and it's so relieved to see him pushed out of a building.
Oh, he was terrible there. Oh,
I mean, that wasn't the fate of the character. That was his review.
They thought, yep, see you later. And I'd say the other guys are that guy in the office with the computer. He says, well. He's like there, and he sort of talks in a very sort of authoritative voice that's slightly well rehearsed. I always think in the way he talks and everything he says here. Well, Nicholas, it looks as though we don't have any money. You think to yourself, nobody talks like you, do they really? Well, Nicholas, what are you going to do about it?
I can confirm he does talk like that, because I worked with him in Big Finish in a story called Creatures of Beauty. I can't remember his name, but he had been famous for a series in the 90s called This Life. I don't know whether you ever heard of that.
No.
And he was in that as the older man who has an affair. It's about a group of young lawyers who all live in digs together, and Jack Davenport was one of them. That's what made him famous. And there's some other people who got really famous at the time. And funnily enough, here's a link. They did a sort of 10 years later get-together of all the This Life characters. And Jodie Whittaker was the new addition to the cast. She was playing a young student who was making a documentary about them.
How funny.
And I remember at the time people saying, you've got to watch this young actor, she's going to be big. And so she was.
No, she's got the biggest job in telly. That's a crazy link. There's lots of links there. I mean, one game, a lot of people in there to watch, I think.
So you can get it on DVD, can't you?
Yeah, you can get it on DVD from Network. It's been released twice, I believe. I think it was released and then discontinued for some reason. Now Network are doing it.
Probably Stephen Delaney took legal action, and then they beat him.
He said in his voice, he talks a bit like this, doesn't he? He's always sort of, come on, Simon. He's very Simon Garden. Legend. No, great show. Highly recommended, the one game. So now, Nick, it is that time to pick another one for next week, isn't it?
I absolutely know what to do to you.
Okay, then. Throw me out a window.
Star Trek, Balance of Terror.
Okay, that sounds
because I've been watching old Star Treks, and that's the one that I particularly love, that I've been avoiding watching because I think I'm going to save that for the Benji and Nick show.
Do you know what?
The Romulan it's the submarine drama with the Romulan. No.
Oh, it's meant to be absolutely iconic. I think I've actually seen it before. Maybe how late in is it? Either way,
it's in the first season.
Yes, I have seen it. Either way, what a treat! What a treat!
Great, all sorts of subtext of racism, and it's brilliant. It's really not supporting racism. I hasten to add, it's interesting stuff. So there you are, bada boom.
Oh, what fun! That is a real fun curveball. Just the idea that I'm going to have to make time to watch some Star Trek for a podcast.
Netflix,
what fun! No, I'm saying it's going to be brilliant. That is going to be part of my week, and saying, I've got to make some time for Star Trek. You see, great fun. Cool.
I just watched Return of the Archons. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very fun. Enjoy it.
I like that one. I mean, it's nothing remarkable, but it's just it's really good.
But with Star Trek, I would say that certainly with the original series, some of the stuff in there isn't remarkable, but I still love it. I'll still watch it. I've not got to a story in there where I thought, I'll skip this, because they're all kind of fun in their own way.
They all get you, don't they?
They all get you. I could have a whole 9 hours of Spock and Kirk just
absolutely
muttering to each other, and I'd be very happy.
And then if you get really bored, you can just look at the makeup on their faces, because we're watching it in much higher definition than it was intended for. So, or count the number of pores on their nose, or
or see
a bit of wig gauze now and again. I'm saying no more.
See computer system screens which are clearly painted.
There are all those things to look out for, or just detect those moments where they forgot to put the door noise on, and you just hear two bits of wood hitting each other. So
all well worth it.
It does happen. Of course, they've all got new digital effects on them, so they may have cleaned up some of that stuff now.
I tell you, the dream Benji and Nick show scenario would be to one day, if ever we're in the United States together, is to do a Benji and Nick show on a Star Trek episode out in the States, because it's like that would be, given it's America's biggest contribution, I think, to science fiction. It's the place one day.
And it's worth mentioning that in the next podcast there'll be a little interlude, because you and I are meeting up on Monday and Tuesday.
We certainly are.
Go and look at studios and things, do all sorts of interesting things like that. And not that we'll be talking about that in the podcast, but I think it would be interesting if we record something while we're out and about.
Oh,
it
definitely.
may be unrepeatable, but
well, it'd be rude not to, old boy. That's what I always think. Why not, eh?
So is it time to go back to speaking like this?
Yes, here we are. Nice hugging the microphone there.
You can rest your nose on the top of the pop shelf.
Smells new. I've got this microphone arrived between recording. We recorded the Big Finish podcast this morning, and now we're doing the Benji and Nick show, and this particular microphone arrived in between, so it smells wonderfully brand new.
Mine's a bit old.
Mine's a bit old. People just got this horrible vision. They just think all I do is sit and sniff microphones all day. That's the sound. That's the smell of sound. That one.
Goodness.
Oh yeah.
Don't forget to rate and review us.
Yes.
Rate and review.
Do your R&R. Doesn't take long, but it makes a heck of a difference.
And write in at podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. New competition coming next week. And that's all I've got to say.
Well, that's good things to say. So from me, Benji, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you next week for Star Trek.
Cheerio. Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.